We got breaking news here, gang. President Trump has just announced that Iran is caved. The Strait of Hormuz is now completely open. They buckled, they surrendered, even as the U.S. enforced blockade on Iran continues. I make no mistake, this is absolutely historic, and we're going to find out why most people watching the news right now, they have absolutely no idea what they're actually looking at. They see Iran, they see the Strait of Hormuz, they see Trump tweeting, they see the legacy media having their daily meltdowns, they see negotiations starting, negotiations collapsing, oil prices spiking, now plummeting, and they think chaos. They think another Middle Eastern mess. They think nobody knows what on earth they're doing. We're about to see with total confidence how nothing could possibly be farther from the truth. What's happening right now in the Persian Gulf is not chaos. It's not impulsiveness. What we're watching is one of the single most coherent, sophisticated, civilizational grand strategies ever executed by an American president. And it connects to literally everything else Trump is doing. Greenland, Venezuela, the Strait of Malacca, Space Force, Artemis 2, AI, the Council of Peace, NATO, all of it. One strategy, one vision. So today, I'm going to unpack step by step that one single grand strategy vision for you. So make sure to stick them to the very end of this video, because I promise everything is going to make sense like it never did before. We're going to walk through Trump's absolute masterstroke at the Strait of Hormuz and why it just suffocated Iran's last source of leverage. We're going to talk about China and why Beijing cannot save itself, let alone Tehran, and what it means for Taiwan. And we're going to zoom out to Europe, Russia, Greenland, the Western Hemisphere, and ultimately even outer space. And I'm going to show you how it is all one unified civilizational architecture being assembled in real time. This is the biggest story in the world right now, and you're not going to hear it explained like this anywhere else. So stick with me, because by the end of this, you're going to see the world in a whole new way. Greetings, everyone. It is Livestream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, enjoying yet another glorious day in the Trumpian golden age that you made possible back in November of 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. As always, we got a jam-packed show for you today. Our super chats are up, so feel free to send in your comments or questions. It'll be my privilege to read and answer them during this live stream. Also, with this breaking news about Hormuz, we got to talk about the stock market in its relation to Iran, because this is stunning stuff. As you know, President Trump just gave Iran a hard deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. They blinked. The strait is reopened. All the while, Iranian ports get blockaded by the U.S. naval forces, and the market responded immediately. The Dow surged nearly 1,400 points in a single day. Oil prices plummeted. That's what happens when you got a president who negotiates from strength instead of weakness. But remember, negotiations are still happening. Oil prices are swinging. And while the legacy media is busy debating the politics of this, smart investors are looking at the opportunities. And when I have questions about what's really going on in the markets, I reach out to a good friend of this channel, Mark Wilburn of Neos Capital. Mark has been trading for nearly 20 years, and he has an incredible track record of calling major market moves before they happen. In fact, last year, he called out 141 trades, and 78% of those were winners. 78%. So when I asked Mark for his take on Iran, he sent me some really interesting insights on what to expect. Mark also mentioned there's a lot of opportunity right now to take advantage of for some big shifts happening in certain sectors, but you got to know what you're doing and what's really going on, which is why I am so excited to announce that Mark will be hosting a free online training event called the Freedom Trading Summit. It's this Saturday, April 18th. The whole idea is how to reclaim control of your family's wealth from woke Wall Street fund managers and the government. And they'll just break down how the Iran situation, Trump's foreign policy are creating specific opportunities in certain sectors and how you can prosper from it. This event is for everyone, whether you're brand new to trading or already active in the market. So if you're wondering what you should do to position yourself to prosper in these turbulent times, click the link below right now or go to freeturleyticket.com to claim your spot. Mark's agreed to open up registration absolutely for free for all our listeners because he wants to support patriots just like you. So go to freeturleyticket.com right now and reserve your spot April 18th. You're going to absolutely love it. All right, let's dive right in here. Now, we often talk on this channel about the rise of what are called civilization states, right? If you do not understand this whole notion of the civilization state, you are not going to understand what Trump is doing here. You're not going to understand what he's doing in Iran. You're not going to understand what he's doing in Hormuz. You're not going to understand what he's doing in the Strait of Malacca that links the Indian Ocean with the South China Sea. You're not going to understand what he's doing with Venezuela or Cuba or Panama. You're not going to understand what he's doing with Greenland or the Board of Peace or what he's doing with NATO. I mean, you're not going to understand Artemis II and Space Force and AI. The civilization state, or what I call the civcosm, this rising civilizational cosmocracy, provides the conceptual center that literally integrates everything Trump is doing here. So let's start by getting the conceptual center here, because once you've got that, everything Trump is doing locks into place. First and foremost, a civilization state is not a nation state. You got to get that, especially if you're like a Tom Massey libertarian, God have mercy on you. But you got to get that. A civilization state is not a nation state. The nation state is a relatively recent invention, roughly 200 years old, built on the idea that political loyalty is primarily territorial. So you got a flag, you got a border, you got a government, you got a people who share a language and usually an ethnicity. That was the organizing principle of the modern world, right? A civilization state is very different than that. A civilization state is much older and it's much larger. It organizes political life around a shared civilizational identity, a shared cultural identity that extends beyond borders. It's a common sacred order. It's a common historical memory, a common understanding of who we are as a people and what we are for, what we mean in this cosmos. So think, for example, of China. China is not a country among countries. China is historically a civilization. 5,000 years of continuous cultural and philosophical tradition, and it's now reasserting itself as a geopolitical actor that has sovereignty over its own geographic sphere. China is, in many ways, the first real civilizational state to emerge. Or think of Russia. Russia does not think of itself as a post-Soviet rump state. It sees itself, once again, as Holy Rus, the third Rome, right? The first Rome fell, then Constantinople fell, and so the center of Christianity moved to Moscow. That's the third Rome ideology, as it were. It has its own orthodox civilizational logic that predates communism. And again, you could say, well, Putin just says that because, you could be very cynical about it and say, Putin just says that to cloak his kleptocracy and everything like that. Fine, I'll see your hand and raise you 10. He says that, so why does it work? Why is it so popular? Why does he appeal? Why does China appeal to renewed Confucianism? Well, it's because people don't believe in communism anymore, but they do believe in their civilization. Right. So the civilizationalist rhetoric coming from Xi, coming from Putin, the very popularity of it proves that civilization states are now front and center in the sort of the cognitive imagination of these populations. I think of Iran. Iran was not a nation state playing by what's known as Westphalian rules, going back to the treaties of Westphalia back in the 1640s. Iran was the Shiite civilizational project that bound together all other Shiite forces in the region, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the revolutionary forces in Iraq. Think of India, too, as a civilizational state. It's the classical term is Bharat. It has its own civilizational Hindu grammar, stretching back thousands of years to the Vedic era. now reemerging as a self-conscious great power through the rise of the Hindu nationalist vision of the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party, and Prime Minister Modi. And this is what the BRICS alliance is all about, right? That economic alliance known as BRICS. It's a networked multipolarity that economically joins forces with the great civilization states of China, Russia, and India, along with Brazil and South Africa. They don't care about your politics. They don't care if you're a liberal democracy. They don't care if you're an authoritarian, kleptocracy. They don't care. They don't care. What they care about is maintaining the sovereignty of their own nations and then entering into an economic alliance, a multi-civilizational economic bloc that protects the integrity and the sovereignty of their respective civilizational spheres. And now think of America. Think of America under Trump. It's no longer a liberal democratic nation state. It is the Western civilization state, a civilization built on a Christian Protestant sacred order, classical learning in Jerusalem, Athens, and Rome, constitutional liberty, technological mastery, an emerging sense that Western civilization itself is worth defending as a civilization, not merely as a policy preference. This is the vision of America originally coined by John Winthrop, quoting the scriptures, naming America as the shining city on a hill. Our forefathers crossed over the Atlantic, and they saw that as the Hebrews crossing the Red Sea to inherit this new promised land and to be a beacon of hope and freedom for the world. That's the theological, civilizational vision that is part of the DNA of America. That's what we're singing when we're saying, God bless America. This is what I mean by the civcosm, the civilizational cosmocracy. It's a new world order that's not organized around administrative managerial institutions like the UN or the IMF or the WTO, but around civilizations, ancient civilizations, competing and cooperating across three interlocking arenas. The first is theopolitics, the contest between civilizational sacred orders for moral authority and cultural legitimacy. We're seeing this explicitly in this clash between the Abraham Accords nations and the messianic multipolarity of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The second arena is technopolitics, the contest between civilizationally distinct technological ecosystems for economic and military supremacy. And the third arena is astropolitics. So that's the extension of this civilizational competition beyond geopolitics into astropolitics, beyond this atmosphere into orbit, to the moon, to the stars, literally. Whoever wins space writes the rules for the next epoch of human civilization. We're talking for literally the next 1,000 years. And once you see the world through that civcosm framework, everything Trump is doing, and I mean everything, snaps into focus. It's not chaos. It's not impulsiveness. It is a coherent, civilizational, grand strategy. And nowhere is that clearer than what is happening right now in Iran and the Persian Gulf. So let's start with what the legacy media just gets totally wrong about all of this, right? If you've been listening to the press, you'll note that, and the Democrats as well, they operate in a 24-hour rage cycle. And nowhere has that been more disorienting than in their coverage of the Iran war. So, for example, after Trump tweeted on Easter that he was going to end the civilization of Iran, right? You remember that? Meaning, of course, the radical Shia jihadist theocracy, not the Iranian people or the ancient Persian heritage. The Democrats in the media absolutely flipped out. They accused him of being Hitler. They said he was deranged. They said you needed to invoke the 25th and remove him from office. And then literally 24 hours later, when he announced the ceasefire and high-level negotiations with Iran, those very same voices called him a coward. They said he buckled. They said Iran won, that Trump was the new Neville Chamberlain, a Jimmy Carter sellout. Taco, right? Trump always chickens out. Now, of course, you can't hold both positions at once. So what this reveals is that these voices in the legacy media, they're not analyzing the war empirically or objectively. They're analyzing it politically. They've reached the point. I mean, they already have the headline written before anything happens. And they've reached the point where anything that goes badly for the United States would, in their estimation, be a net positive because it's going to hurt Trump. And keep in mind, they're doing this while tens of thousands of American soldiers are in the theater risking their lives to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles that within 2 or 3 years could reach not just Western Europe, but the continental United States, with North Korean, Chinese, and Russian assistance on the back end. And they're doing it while there is at least some communication structure left for the Iranian people who are waiting for the green light to rise up. They're hearing this BS from the legacy media, and it's demoralizing them. Now, in civcosm terms, what these legacy media critics just simply can't see because of their TDS is that the Islamic Republic of Iran was simply, it was never a normal nation state pursuing normal nation state interests. It was a theopolitical civilization project, the Shia jihadist vanguard of a global Islamic revolution with the explicit theological mandate to destroy the Zionist entity, humiliate the great Satan, and prepare the ground for the return of the hidden imam. So this is not a negotiating position. This is a civilizational mission, and it's irreconcilable with an American-led civilizational order with America as the shining city on a hill, a beacon of hope and freedom for all the world, and the architecture, the security and peace and prosperity architecture that it has helped broker between Israel and the Sunni Gulf Arab countries in the Middle East. The two cannot coexist. So this is why Trump is not treating this as a diplomatic dispute with a difficult country like Obama and Biden did, sending them, boatloads, literally airplane loads of cash. Trump is treating this as a civilizational confrontation, a clash of civilization, and he's right. So that's the theopolitical civilizational dimension that's operative here. And people need to understand that. There is no negotiating with Iran. The theopolitical dimension here completely negates that. Iran sees itself as having a divine mission to destroy the great Satan. There is no negotiating with that. You may be able to work out a deal here or there, but they will always, in the end, turn it in some kind of way as leverage over and against the great Satan. There's just no way around that. And Trump said, that world ends. We're not dealing with that world anymore. We're taking it apart. So how's he doing in that area? Well, by every traditional military metric, Iran is now effectively inert. Its navy's been destroyed. Its air force is gone. It has no missile defenses capable of stopping allied aircraft from operating freely over Iranian airspace. Missiles and drones, which were the backbone of Iran's asymmetric deterrence for 4 decades, they've been decimated to roughly 10% of pre-war stockpiles. $500 billion in weapons, infrastructure, military assets built painstakingly over 47 years have been entirely erased. That's the key. Not degraded, erased. In civcosm terms, this is the collapse of Iran's techno-political pillar, okay? The IRGC spent 4 decades building what was, for a regional power, a genuinely sophisticated asymmetric military technological ecosystem. Long-range missiles, armed drones, proxy networks across 5 countries, a nuclear program. It was Iran's answer to Western and Israeli technological superiority. The problem is their entire military architecture was third generational. It's third generational technology, land, sea, and air. What they just faced is civcosm 5th generational technology, land, sea, and air, plus cyberspace and even outer space. Remember, the very first move that was made in this war were through U.S. satellites that jammed all of of Iran's communicative capabilities. Their third generational military structure, architecture, gone. Gone. It literally in a blink of an eye. That technopolar military that Iran had built over 47 years is literally, as we speak, extinct. The technopolitical competition in this theater is over. The question now is whether the theopolitical project, the regime's sacred legitimacy claim, can survive the destruction of the military apparatus that enforced it. I don't think it can, by the way. I think the regime's legitimacy was built on three things. It was built on that messianic ideology. It was built on the ability to project power. And then it was also built on a patronage system. So they basically paid for loyalty. And once their money dries up, once their money is gone, the loyalty is gone. And then when we come in and we destroy their ability to project power, and we find that the ideology is more unpopular than it's ever been, we do have surveys that find 80-90% of Iranians want the regime gone. We have another stat: 75% of their mosques have closed over the last 10 years because people just stopped going. They don't believe in this theology anymore. I just think they're shot. It's just a matter of time. And there's another layer here. Iran's command and control has been driven down to the second and third tier. So nobody really knows who's actually running the country. Is it the IRGC? Yeah. Is it the president? Is it the political class? Is it the yet to be seen supreme leader? Is it the regular army? Each faction is afraid of the others. Each wants to appear as hardline as possible to avoid looking compliant. And any leader who cuts a deal with the United States knows that in a post-regime transitional period, they're going to be held personally accountable for everything this government has done. So the result is a fractured, paralyzed leadership that simply can't surrender. It can't fight. It can't negotiate. The Iranian regime strategy for survival, I believe, right now rests on three pillars. Okay. So if you want to understand what Iran is doing, the logic of what they're doing, you have to understand that from three vantage points. They've got the Strait of Hormuz, or at least they did. That was their last piece of technopolitical leverage, their ability to weaponize geography. And they were betting that by selectively choking off Hormuz, the regime could spike global oil prices, create economic turbulence, and politically damage Trump enough to force him to withdraw with his tail between his legs. So that's the play, not military victory, just political disruption. Secondly, they want that political disruption to adversely affect the midterms. So this is why the negotiations go nowhere. They're not meant to go anywhere. Some are calling it the rug strategy. Have you heard this? It's playing on the stereotype of Persian rug merchants as master hagglers who never intend to close a deal quickly. So the specific logic is that Iran's theopolitical and civilizational tradition includes a deep cultural and diplomatic tradition of prolonged theatrical bargaining, not because it expects to win a good deal, but because the negotiation itself is the strategy. Every week spent in talks is a week the blockade continues, oil prices stay elevated, economic pain accumulates ahead of the U.S. midterms. Again, that was their strategy. Obviously, it's imploded as of today. So negotiations in this case are just stalling tactics. Iran's not negotiating to reach an agreement. It's negotiating and run out the clock to the midterms so that this war hurts Trump politically. And then third, they need to outlast Trump. Iran has studied American presidents for decades. 6 of the last 7 presidents across both parties did nothing of consequence in response to Iranian-sponsored mass murder, right? So the Beirut barracks bombing, Khobar Towers, the USS Cole, decades of proxy warfare, 6 presidents, 0 serious retaliation. So from a pure civilization realist standpoint, Iran's bet was not irrational. The liberal globalist order had no stomach for civilizational confrontation with the mullahs. So they believe wait long enough And the next administration, whether Democrat or soft Republican, they'll restore that arrangement. And once the pressure lifts, they'll be able to quietly reconstitute the nuclear program with Chinese and North Korean help. That was a viable strategy in the old world order. The old world order that our podcast panicans still live in. But in this new world order, the world order of the civcosm, in a civilizational cosmocracy, that no longer works because Trump's not acting as the administrator of a liberal internationalist system. He's acting as the leader of a Western civilization state. And Western civilization states do not allow existential rivals to reconstitute after military defeat. They finish the job. And this is where Trump has completely flipped the script on Iran. The masterstroke in this conflict is what Trump did with the Strait of Hormuz. And it's a perfect expression of civcosm technopolitics at work. Iran's pre-war strait strategy operated like a mafia protection racket. Ships that wanted to transit the Persian Gulf and access Karg Island, that's right, Iran's ATM. It's their crown jewel, responsible for the overwhelming bulk of its oil and petrochemical exports, earning approximately, I think it was $435 million per day. Ships had to pay or comply or risk harassment. For 50 years, the world's energy markets existed on Iranian sufferance and on Iranian terms in the region. This was Iran's technopolitical choke point, the ability to weaponize geography and energy infrastructure against Western economic interests. Trump's response, stunningly, was to mirror Iran's own strategy, but turn it upside down, turn it against Iran, invert it. Iran said only pro-Iranian ships may enter. Trump said only anti-Iranian ships may enter. Same technopolitical logic, opposite direction. But the difference is that the United States has the naval power to enforce it, all the while Iran, having been decimated, does not. And they don't have the power to stop it. And so what this blockade of Iran is doing is it's turning their stall tactics in the negotiations effectively into a form of economic suicide. Remember, Karg Island handles the vast majority of Iran's oil exports, 90%. They have all their oil pipelines that stretch from their mainland all the way underwater into the vats on the islands so as to load up these super tankers easily and quickly. Karg Island sits deep in the Persian Gulf with no viable alternative. Iran can't reroute its oil. Its Caspian Sea access and Gulf of Oman ports are minuscule. There's no backup. When you blockade an oil-producing country that cannot reroute, its storage capacity fills within just a couple of days. Then it has to shut down the wells. And oil wells, once shut down, don't simply restart. They require constant maintenance to prevent water seepage. Rebooting them is expensive. It's technically difficult. The economic damage compounds daily. Iran is losing hundreds of millions of dollars a day in oil revenue, the vast majority of which, by the way, comes from China. And remember, Iran was already experiencing hyperinflation before the war started with a currency that's now essentially worthless. The rial is there are millions of rial to the dollar. So within an economy that's already falling apart, the loss of hundreds of millions of dollars a day is simply not survivable, especially for an economy that was already on life support. And so what did the regime just announce as of this morning? Trump knew it. He knew it was only a matter of time. They've officially ended the blockade. The Strait of Hormuz is now open to all. That's the regime collapsing. I mean, again, it's really simple. Their economy is in tatters. They're in desperate need to sell their oil. The U.S. enforced naval blockade was slowly but surely suffocating them. And after 6 weeks of aerial strikes, they had no power to contest it. Trump knows he holds literally all the cards. And so their blockade collapsed. And as a result, the price of crude oil is plummeting this morning. It's already headed to below $80 a barrel. And to make things even more astonishing, the Strait of Hormuz itself is losing its leverage position in the global energy system. And that process is now accelerating. The Saudis are already expanding their Red Sea pipeline. The Emiratis are expanding their Gulf of Oman pipelines to bypass the strait entirely. There are serious proposals for a pipeline across Jordan to Haifa, connecting Gulf oil to the Mediterranean. Within 4 or 5 years, the Persian Gulf's strategic value may be limited primarily to just Iraq and Iran, and both countries will be pro-American. In CivCosm terms, this is a techno-political infrastructure revolution. America and its Gulf partners are engineering away Iran's last geographic leverage. 50 years of Iranian theopolitical power rested on a choke point that is now being effectively bypassed. The regime's geopolitical weight is not merely being defeated, it is being architected, if I can make up a term, out of existence. And all of this converges around the United States, because not only is the United States the largest producer of oil on the planet, but now we basically control, through our own security architecture, upwards of 60% of the world's oil supply and revenue. The United States is truly the shining city on a hill in energy terms. And what does that mean for the petrodollar? It means the petrodollar is going nowhere. BRICS countries are going to be forced from this point forward to increasingly do business in the US dollar, because there's no viable alternative given our dominance over the global energy market. The yuan simply doesn't convert anywhere near as dynamically and liquidly as the US dollar. The petrodollar is here to stay. It was most certainly dying under Biden, as he was. It's now the dominant currency for the foreseeable future, precisely because we just needed a new president. Precisely because of what President Trump is doing in realigning this new civilizationalist order. This is what civilizational, economic, grand strategy looks like in the CivCosm era. It's not trade sanctions imposed through multilateral institutions. It is direct, sovereign, technologically enforced economic pressure applied by a civilization state with the naval and aerospace power to back it up and the political will to use that power. And as we just saw as of this morning, that power was perfectly and totally effective. Now, I mentioned China here as well, both as a civilization state, but also as Iran's chief financier, right? When all is said and done, China is Iran's last theoretical lifeline. But unfortunately for the regime, it's not a viable one. 80% of the ships entering the Persian Gulf to buy Iranian oil are Chinese. Under Trump's blockade, those ships are getting turned back. Now, China, of course, is protesting, but what can they do? China depends on Middle Eastern oil in general far more than the United States does. So the key here is that a prolonged strait closure damages Beijing. China's not going to risk a naval confrontation with 3 American carrier strike groups to protect a dying Iranian regime that can't pay its own bills, especially when such a confrontation would effectively cut China off from the source of 40% of its oil. 40% of China's oil comes through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, in CivCosm terms, China is watching this war through a very specific lens, and that's Taiwan. The United States has now demonstrated in real time that it can conduct a devastating, asymmetric, fifth-generational, no boots on the ground campaign against a major regional power with sophisticated air defenses. American drone production is being scaled to 500,000 to 1 million units. Taiwan is being armed to the teeth. The idea that China would now attempt a crossing of 110 nautical miles of contested water under a constant barrage of ballistic missiles and drones, facing a U.S. carrier fleet on the other side, after watching what just happened to Iran's Navy and Air Force, is much harder to sustain. Iran was a warning to Beijing at the technopolitical level. And make no mistake, China read it. This is also where the Strait of Malacca comes in. Now, we talked earlier this week about the stunning defense cooperation partnership that the Trump administration just made with the nation of Indonesia. And the key with that partnership is that we now have full access to Indonesian airspace, which just so happens to include the southern bank of the Strait of Malacca, the choke point between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, through which 80% of China's oil imports travel. This is what Chinese strategists, and they coined the term, they call the Malacca dilemma. It goes back to the early 2000s when President Hu Jintao himself identified this as China's chief strategic vulnerability, and he publicly warned about it in a number of speeches, and he was right to worry. Because there are three nations that control the Strait of Malacca: Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. Singapore is already a rock-solid U.S. ally. Malaysia has been moving closer to Washington's orbit for years, and now Indonesia in a full military alliance with the United States. Bottom line, the Strait of Malacca is no longer safely in China's operational sphere. The Civ-COSM grand strategy is not just about Iran. It's about establishing credible civilizational deterrence against the Chinese civilizational world across every strategic choke point on the planet, simultaneously with American civilizational control over each one of those major choke points. China was obtaining tacit control over Hormuz with their financing of Iran as a proxy of a Chinese-led international order. That's now gone. They were exercising tacit control over the Panama Canal. That's now gone. And it's all being replaced with an American-led international order. And now that international order is extending even into China's own backyard by virtue of our alliance with Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. We now control the Strait of Malacca, through which 80% of Chinese energy imports flow. Gang, this is grand strategy on steroids. And if you can believe it, we ain't seen nothing yet. I told you changed the world back in November. But first, gang, if you're just joining us, our super chats are up. So feel free to send in your comments and your questions. I'll be happy to answer them right here on this live stream. Also, did you know that U.S. life expectancy actually peaked at 78 years back in 2014, and global life expectancy is declining for the first time in 30 years because people are aging faster than ever before? And that's largely due to more toxins in the air or chemicals in our soil and food and other external factors that are new to us. What most people don't know is that we can actually fight aging on a cellular level. Scientists have discovered that kimchi actually slows the aging process of human cells, helping to protect them and delay aging. The power of nature can outweigh the power of pharmaceuticals without the nasty side effects. And now you can get all the benefits of kimchi in a simple capsule with Kimchi One. I take Kimchi One every single day. I absolutely love it. Each capsule delivers over 900 probiotic strains, plus antioxidants and enzymes that support your digestion, metabolism, and skin health from the inside out. And as we age, we become more susceptible to microbial threats, harmful viruses and bacteria. But the beauty is that Kimchi One, it's a natural antimicrobial, helping your body fight off harmful bacteria, viruses, and even toxins while boosting immunity and energy. And best of all, Kimchi One, it's 100% made right here in America. It's all natural, non-GMO. So do what I do. Support your gut, protect your cells, and feel younger every day with Kimchi One from Brightcore. Today, you can actually get an exclusive offer just by clicking the link below. Use code TURLEY for 25% off your entire order. Or for an even better deal, call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off your order and free shipping. Give them a call right now at 888-597-0233. That's 888-597-0233. All right, so as we zoom out here, we could see how the Iran war is reshaping the entire world order into a civilizational cosmocracy, as I call it, the Civ-COSM, as it were. let's look at a couple of the losers in this new world order, in at least at this level of what's happening in the Iranian theater. Russia is one of the biggest strategic losers of this conflict. It's lost all presence in Venezuela, Cuba, Latin America as a whole, and the Middle East. Its Assad regime is gone. Its drone relationship with Iran is gone. It's bogged down in Ukraine. The smart move for Russia, and the one Trump is dangling, is a ceasefire in Ukraine, sanctions relief, and Russian oil back on the market as an alternative to Middle Eastern supply. Russia rejoining Western civilizational trade orbit is worth more than its continued partnership with a defeated Iran, and that would also effectively decouple Russia from China in being absorbed into the Western civilizational trade orbit, which would be a reverse Kissinger, right? So Kissinger decoupled China from Russia. Now Trump wants to decouple Russia from China, and he's effectively setting the stage for that by removing all the pro-Russian proxies like Venezuela and Syria and Cuba and Iran from the equation. So that's forcing Russia to take it, to reconsider its relationship with the United States and the U.S.-led Western trading blocs. Then you've got Europe. In terms of talk about being the biggest loser of them all. They've been an abject failure in all of this. The United States asked almost nothing of NATO. We're talking use of bases and airspace, bases that we pay for, by the way. And the response was a unified failure. But Spain was the most pathetic. They closed their embassy in Israel. I kid you not. Spain closed their embassy in Israel, but kept it open in Tehran. France refused air power overflight permission. Britain, despite having bases targeted in Cyprus, couldn't even send a single destroyer because they don't have anything that's working. Even Italy, Giorgia Meloni, very disappointing. She refused to allow bombers to land in Sicily. This is not an alliance failure. It is collectively, at least the Trump administration believes, it's collectively a civilizational symptom. Europe got captured by post-nationalist, globalist, liberal ideology, and it can't bring itself to defend Western civilization because it no longer believes Western civilization is worth defending. And so with exposing the civilizational poverty of Europe, we can all now see how Trump's Greenland play makes perfect sense in this frame. When Europe denied the United States airspace during the Iran operation, the strategic logic of controlling an Arctic route independent of European permission became self-evident even to Europeans themselves. Greenland is not a real estate acquisition. It's a sovereignty move by a civilization state reclaiming its geopolitical sphere from a hollowed-out alliance. Moreover, now that we have global energy dominance with our domestic drill baby drill policies and our international controlling of Venezuela, the number one oil producer or one of the top oil producers in the world, as well as our effective control of the key choke points of Hormuz and Malacca, we are now going to add to drill baby drill, dig baby dig. We're now going to add minerals dominance with Greenland, which gives the United States the power to control the physical raw material inputs, rare earths, gallium, cobalt, lithium, dozens of others, without which no nation on earth can build semiconductors, advanced weapon systems, EV batteries, solar panels, or AI hardware, meaning that America effectively holds a choke point over every rival civilization's technological and military industrial base simultaneously. And so if we step back and see what's really happening here, we could see the grand unifying theory of an American civcosm, an American civilizational cosmocracy emerge. And this is where everything connects. What Trump is building is not a foreign policy. It's not international relations. It's a civilizational architecture. And it has at least 6 pillars that map directly onto the civcosm framework. The first pillar is energy dominance, right? Technopolitics at the resource level. So America floods the world with its own oil and gas. It decouples the dollar from Middle Eastern instability and ends the 50-year era of energy geopolitics as Iranian leverage. That's all very, very clear. The second pillar is ending the post-war burden sharing model. This is the dissolution of the old post-World War II liberal international order that asked America to subsidize the defense of civilizations that no longer believe in their own civilization. Europe has been audited and they've been found insolvent. NATO is being restructured, probably around bilateral relationships with allies who actually show up. That's going to be primarily Central Europe and Eastern Europe. The third pillar is hemisphere first security, the Monroe Doctrine reborn as a civ COSM strategy. So Venezuela, Cuba, Panama, Greenland, these are not random provocations. They're the assertion of a Western hemispheric civilization state sphere, modeled explicitly on what China has claimed in the South China Sea. The Western Hemisphere is America's civilizational home territory, and it is being secured as such. The fourth pillar is military restoration combined with astropolitical expansion. And this is where Space Force and Artemis II come in. The Civ COSM model holds that the next civilizational frontier is not a geographic choke point like Hormuz or Malacca. It's the cislunar economy. Cislunar is the zone between Earth and the moon, where the first civilization to establish permanent infrastructure writes the rules for literally the next century. The same civilization state that just demonstrated could destroy Iran's technopolitical military ecosystem in mere weeks is simultaneously, again, at the very same time, I want this to hit you. At the same time, we're just completely wiping out one of the major powers in the world. And the same time, we're racing to land on the lunar South Pole. We're racing to operationalize Space Force as the first branch of a celestial military and scale AI-driven military production to a pace no adversary could even imagine matching. Artemis II is not a NASA program. It's an astropolitical sovereignty claim. The fifth pillar is declawing China without a direct war. And that's exactly what Trump is doing here with the Iranian situation and with Malacca. He is declawing China, but without a hot war. It's containment by civilizational architecture, by networked multipolarity. The Abraham Accords network, the Strait Deterrence demonstration, the Taiwan armament, the Malacca overhang, these are all the components of a technopolitical cage being built around Chinese power projection, tightened incrementally so that no single move constitutes what we call a casus belli, a cause of war. And at the same time, Trump is wooing Russia to decouple itself from China as all of this power and money flows into a U.S.-led networked multipolarity that stretches all the way from the Western Hemisphere through Europe, through Israel and the Arab states in the Middle East, in through India, Indonesia, Australia, and Japan. That is an American-led, networked multipolarity that will dominate the planet for the foreseeable future. And then the sixth pillar is the Council of Peace, the replacement of the UN Security Council model with a civilizational alliance network led by America and its genuine partners. Not America acting alone, America leading a coalition of civilizational allies, about 3 or 4 dozen of them, who share the mission and they front the institutional legitimacy. We now have peace negotiations between Israel and Lebanon, not through the UN, no, but more or less through this Board of Peace, with Lebanon potentially joining the Abraham Accords. So that means then you have Israel and the Gulf Arab states all now sharing in the same security architecture. The Middle East reorganized not around the post-colonial nation-state map, but around civilizational partnerships that actually cohere around their common lineage to the patriarch Abraham. In theopolitical terms, it means the Judeo-Christian West and the Sunni Arab world are fully aligned against the Iranian jihadist theocracy to bring about peace and prosperity in the Middle East. In technopolitical terms, it means that the Western tech ecosystem dominating energy, drones, AI, and space, while BRICS loses its petrodollar alternative. In astropolitical terms, it means the Artemis Accords, which involves 50-plus signatory nations, will collectively claim the cislunar commons for the free world, while China is left racing to catch up from a position of strategic disadvantage. This is the civcosm. This is what's being built right before our very eyes. And Iran, the Islamic Republic, the last standing theopolitical civilization, a rival to the Western Christian order in this hemisphere, is the first major piece to fall. The hangover from the Cold War era. The regime lost the military war. It's now losing the political war. And when the theopolitical pillar follows, when the Iranian people look at those bunkers and those humiliated ayatollahs and decide that the sacred mission has failed, the civcosm shift will be complete in this theater. The Berlin Wall did not fall the day after the conditions for its fall were created, but it did eventually fall. This is where Iran is today. The question is not whether, the question is when. And everything Trump is doing in Hormuz, in Malacca, in Greenland, in orbit, it's all designed to ensure that when that moment arrives, the American-led Western civilizational order is already positioned to shape what comes next. That is what it means to be a shining city on a hill. That is making America truly great again. Over to you as Josh, our moderator, puts together your questions. Remember, our super chats are up, so if you have any questions, it'll be my honor and my privilege to answer them right here live on this broadcast. But first, what if I told you, there is actually a little known arbitrage opportunity hiding inside a $30 billion market, and ordinary people with no background in finance or tech, they're quietly pulling in $5,000, $10,000, even $20,000 a month from it, all from a laptop. I know it sounds almost too good to be true. So I thought that was true, but here's what's actually happening. There is a very real pricing gap in the used book market where the same book could sell for dramatically different amounts depending on the platform. And the people who figured out how to find and capitalize on that gap are building real lasting income. And here's what makes this completely unlike anything else out there. You actually never touch a single physical book. I kid you not. No inventory in your garage, no post office runs, no logistic headaches or any kind, because the entire operation runs from your browser. You spot the opportunity, you make a few clicks, and someone else handles all the fulfillment for you. And I want to be clear, this is not a side hustle that earns you a little spending money. This is a legitimate business model that people are running full-time right now, many of them having left behind careers they weren't passionate about to do it. That's why I'm personally hosting a free live training where I'm going to pull back the curtain and show you exactly how this stuff works, step by step, no fluff, no filler, just the real mechanics of how to find these opportunities and what to do with them. And I've done a deep dive on this, and I genuinely cannot wait to share what I found. So click the link below or type BK Profit, bkprofit.com/Turley in your browser, or you can just scan the QR code on the screen to reserve your free spot right now. Folks, you don't want to miss this one. It's absolutely amazing. All right, what do we got? Josh? Let's see. Spring 91 Bear, the Virginia referendum will pass because of Northern Virginia Ben. But yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I've been asked about the referendum to greenlight their redistricting of 10-1 Democrat map. Yeah, it probably will in the end. I don't think it's going to pass. It's not going to pass by the margins that that this new governor, what is her name, Spamberg or whatever, passed or won by. But yeah, in the end, it probably, I mean, Virginia's gone radically left. I mean, there's no way around it. The deep state has become, it's literally its own state, and that state is Virginia, and it's Nova, as you point out. Rural Virginia, unfortunately, is getting caught up in all this nonsense. So, of course, there's rumblings of wanting to do sort of a Greater Idaho project with West Virginia and just move the borders and just escape this nonsense altogether. But regardless, yeah, it will be interesting to see if it gets struck down in the Supreme Court, because it does violate their own constitution, their state constitution. But I just have a hard time believing the soups are going to do anything with it. So the one consolation is we're waiting for that VRA decision, striking down the Section 2 of VRA, which should give us a net or a pickup of 12 seats, and we'll see how we do in relation. Also, Governor DeSantis is looking at just punishing Virginia with the new Florida map. Richard, Dr. Steve, in your opinion, which is the most effective military choke point? Gulf of Hormuz, Oman, or Strait of Malacca? I'd have to go with Malacca in the end, for containing China. 80% of its imports are going through that. And we're talking I think it's just 2 miles wide at its narrowest point. I'd have to go with Malacca, because Hormuz does have these bypasses, these effective bypasses, like the East-West pipeline in Saudi Arabia and the UAE's pipeline that goes straight into the Gulf of Oman, just bypassing Hormuz altogether. You just don't have those geographic bypasses. If you look at that map of where Malacca is, you're kind of shot. There's nowhere. Where are they going to go? They would have to go all way south. And then even then, with our alliance with the Philippines and so forth, even then we can make it very, very difficult, even if they were able to get around Malacca. So I think Malacca is more effective. Again, Oman can be bypassed via the Red Sea. Christina, Dr. C, can you explain why the bullies in Brussels, who the bullies in Brussels are, and how they have so much leverage over the European countries, Canada, the Vatican, etc.? I heard a German politician complaining about these people in Brussels destroying Germany. Yeah, so this is the EU, and the EU is made up of technocrats and managerialists who see the European continent as the prototype for globalism. I mean, it was thought after World War II that if Europe became sort of a prototype of where a microcosm of the whole world came in and lived harmoniously under managerial structures like the EU and the European Commission and European Commission on Human Rights and so on, that it could be a way forward for world peace. So it's a very globalist-like institution, but the key to that was removing any ethnic and nationalist barriers, which are very strong in Europe, because nation and ethnos are basically the same. If there is no more Greek people, there will be no more Greece. If there's no more Serbs, there will be no more Serbia, right? So, but nevertheless, that's what they tried to do. And they basically opened up the borders. They made their so-called refugee programs that brought in millions upon millions of Northern Africans and Middle Easterners, the most lax in the entire world. And they basically did in Europe what over several years, what Biden did in 4 years, just basically opening up the border and just letting anyone who wants to come in. It's virtually impossible to get rid of them. And so those are the bullies in Brussels. Now, how do they have so much power? That's just the nature of globalism and the globalist structure. So there is a radical divide between the people and the permanent political class in a globalist structure. And so you look at the institutions like the EU or the WEF or the WTO or the IMF or what have you, and you look at those institutions, and they're filled with elites that basically occupy the same cultural space. They have the same goals. They've gone to the same colleges, universities. They go to the same think tanks. They belong to the same think tanks, and they think the same way. And it's radically different from the rank and file grassroots European citizenry. And they've infiltrated pretty much like in a kind of cultural Marxist sense. They've infiltrated every institution in the world, more or less, with that same globalist mindset, because they stand to make tremendous amount of money and centralize a tremendous amount of power into the hands of very, very few. It's technically known as refeudalization, where the amount of money and power are in the hands of fewer people. It's just simply unprecedented. As far as the Vatican is concerned, that's theological modernity. Modernism just absolutely has ravaged the clergy in Catholicism. In many ways, they're even more liberal than mainline Protestants. And while John Paul II and Benedict XVI were certainly men of tradition, very honorable men, the last Francis and Leo are they just drink very deeply of modernity and particularly progressive realism. That's the idea that liberalism is basically one, that the world is moving in a liberal direction. And so any kind of international relations proclamations, any kind of political proclamations always come from the vantage point of the left. The one place they draw the line, and it's one, is the pro-life issue. I guess you could say the male priesthood, they've kept they've held the line on that, so that's considered to be like patriarchy and so forth. But they take that as a badge of honor, and they say, "Oh, we're above it all. We don't side with it. We have this neutrality." And so half the time we're left wing, half the time we're right wing. They're never right wing. Yes, the abortion issue works on them, but keep in mind, even in among leftists in South America, for example, they're pro-life. It's just part of their Catholic tradition. But when it comes to actual policy, borders, economics, and the like, they're fully left wing, absolutely. And it's really sad, because you have so much horror in the world. You just look at the way Iran, I mean, reportedly killed what? I mean, it's anywhere from 10,000 to 30, some would say 40,000 of their own citizens. And I looked it up, and the Vatican was totally silent on that, completely silent. They're silent on Hamas. They're silent on Hezbollah. They just, leftism by its nature sees Western civilization as the greatest evil, and that third world countries, third world cultures rising up against the oppressive West is a moral obligation. So they always side with the third world as victims. And it's just, I just pay no attention to him. I'm sorry, when it comes to politics and so forth, he's a clown. He's a Chicago liberal. He has more in common with Obama and David Axelrod than he does with Trump. And so Trump is just completely dismissing him as a clown. And he is. As you can tell, I'm not Catholic. I'm Orthodox. So. Brian, if the Democrats win the midterms, how much of the president's agenda falters? Not much, as I understand it. Not much at all. There's really not much they can do with EOs. They can do everything they can to try to bottleneck things for Trump, but they could try to cut off money, like they've been doing with TSA. But Trump is fine. He's very creative, and he's finding very, very interesting ways around that. So I don't think there's going to be that much they can do. We'll have the Senate. There doesn't look like any way right now that they're going to win the Senate. So even if they picked up 3 seats, remember, Trump picked up 2 seats in 2018 when the Democrats got 40 seats in the House. We actually got 2 Senate seats. It's only 5th time, I think, that any party in power has been able to do that. So it was pretty historic in that sense. So anyway, I don't think there's going to be that much they can do. I wouldn't worry about it. Again, there wasn't much Democrats could do against Reagan, even though he had 60% approval in 86. There wasn't much they could do. Again, they can make it hard with the Iran-Contra stuff, and they can make it hard with, trying to impeach Trump. But in many ways, he's largely immune to that because everyone's like, you're going back to that old playbook again. So, and Hakeem Jeffries is not very popular, even among Democrats. So I think they're just very politically weak. ROT Core, oh great, and Larid, Patriot Professor. ROT Core is from Minneapolis, as you can see. Have you noticed no one is talking about TSA, airport delay? Yeah, this is a perfect tail end of what. No one's talking about TSA, airport delays, partial government shutdown, or SAVE Act anymore. What happened to that? Well, TSA got solved. Trump has, well, also Congress has been they were on a 2-week at least recess. Airport delays gone. Trump has figured out how to fund TSA. So even if there is a partial government shutdown, it's not doing anything. It's not having really any impact. SAVE Act, we're just gonna have to wait for them to come on back. Again, I'm still very optimistic on the SAVE Act because Republicans are going to have to deliver if we're going to have a midterms convention, a successful, powerful midterms convention in, say, August. They're going to have to deliver. They're going to have to show they did something other than just the BBB. Rebel Squirrel. Might the Alberta Prosperity Project, the APP, use what Trump is doing with oil recalibration to its advantage? An independent Alberta could link its oil and its natural gas industry with ours and really rake in the petrodollars to mutual benefit. Oh, I have no doubt come October, if they do vote for their independence, I have no doubt they'll open up pipelines with the United States almost overnight. Of course. Again, Alberta hasn't seen anything yet. The prosperity that Alberta can achieve is beyond, it's beyond comprehension. And so I think you're absolutely right. I think they would. Now, how it would work out with Ottawa, we'll have to find out. But there's no question that they would develop their own, probably north-south pipelines and piping it directly into the United States, and then sharing revenue and all that good stuff. It'd be win-win-win all the way around. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve. So when is the Shah going back to Iran? Sign the Abraham Accords. And when will we force the media to cover the Accord? I don't know. We can't really. The legacy media is going to do what it's going to do. You can't force it to do anything per se. But they're irrelevant, so it doesn't matter. They really are. They don't have. There's no evidence whatsoever, to my knowledge, that the legacy media has any persuasive impact on the American electorate at this point. Any more, as we have to admit, any more than the podcast doomers have. They clearly do not have a lot of influence. So we'll have to see what goes on with Pahlavi, Reza Pahlavi, the Shah. He would be, at the very least, a brilliant mediator and in the interstices between regimes. And so we'll have to see. I'm sure, again, if not a full-fledged member of the Abraham Accords, they will obviously part of the ultimate deal was they can no longer be an impediment to the architecture, the regional security and economic architecture of the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords will enable the United States to more or less finally come home. Because Israel might and Arab money will now be responsible for the security of the region and its peace and prosperity. EP from Mike, can Minnesota really charge ICE agents? No. No, they have immunity. You can't, it's part of the separation of power. Yeah, so it's a state versus federal. If you're a federal agent, they can't charge you. They'll pretend they can, but they just make things up as they go along. Rubber Guy Spamberger signed a bill saying your votes don't matter, joins the popular vote instead of electoral votes. Other states are trying to do this so only the popular vote counts and bypasses the electoral college. Trump needs to stop. Well, maybe, I guess so. But again, keep in mind, Robo Guy, these are primarily blue states. So I get it, like maybe in Maine, because we have a chance of really winning Maine. We're getting there, very close. New Mexico, we're getting there. It's very close. But these are primarily blue states. Red states aren't doing that. Red states love the electoral college, and they're not going near it. And we dominate the electoral college increasingly. So. Is it Wields? I'm assuming. Dr. Turley, I appreciate everything you do. I'm an American expert living in Bahrain. Oh, cool. Very cool. I've always wanted to go to Bahrain. Very, very cool. Working with some very applicable weapon systems right now. This has been one hell of a war, and I'm glad to see that it's coming to an end. Absolutely. Amen. I'm assuming it's Wields. But absolutely, yeah, Bahrain, I could definitely see it. Bahrain is interesting. I think it's about 50% Shiite. So it is, you would think if Iran had a friend in the region, it would be Bahrain or Azerbaijan and so forth. But no, it's the Bahrain, Azerbaijan. They're very, very much a part of the Israeli Sunni Arab world, and it's wonderful to see. Again, we can see a wonderful architecture emerging of peace and prosperity in the region. Well, God bless you, Tom. God bless your work, and yeah, it is incredible. Like I said, it's the first civcosm war, the first civilizational cosmocracy war. It's the first real fifth generational war. The tech is unbelievable. The directed energy anti missile capabilities. Directed energy is a fancy way of talking about lasers. They have full lasers burning the missiles before they get anywhere near their targets. Incredible. So, and then of course that inverts the cost, the cost to offensive defensive discrepancy. It always was easier to build. I know Tom knows this, but for the benefit of everyone else, it was always much cheaper to build an offensive weapon than it was a defensive weapon, because the defensive weapon had to be, like a cluster bomb. An offensive cluster bomb just explodes in all different directions in the air, becomes many, many different bombs. How do you defend against that? Normally it takes, millions of dollars in technology, particularly our Patriot missile systems and so on. Now with drone anti-aircraft missiles, just a couple of thousand a pop. And with the directed energy, it's literally just $1 or $2. And it's self-sustaining. As long as you have electricity, it just doesn't run out. It's amazing stuff. So God bless your work, Tom. Thank you for this. And I hope to visit Bahrain at some point. I would love to go. Robo Guy, I think we need a new Martin Luther type to reform the church, like how the original tried to. Also, Henry VIII is proud seeing people turn on the Pope. I guess so. Well, yeah, but the UK's church is a bit of a mess in its own right, too, is it not? Look at the current Archbishop of Canterbury. My heavens, talk about clown world. Yeah, I mean, the Roman Catholic Church is a tale of two cities. So on the ground, it is doing great right now. I don't know if you've seen all of the conversions that have been happening in the Roman Catholic Church. The numbers that we're getting from the U.S. Archdiocese is something like a 70% increase in baptisms around Easter time. Easter time is usually the time where you get catechized for 40 days during Lent, and then you're received into the church. Usually, I think it's on Holy Saturday, if I recall. Yeah, and they're doing great at the local level on the ground, where faith is strong. They're conservative, pro-life, all that. Yeah, the Vatican right now, since Francis particularly, and the cardinals that he appointed, is just it seems like it's just become a cesspool of modernity, liberalism, progressivism. The theology of tradition keeps them relatively grounded in pro-life and issues and male priests and celibacy and so on. It keeps them relatively grounded, but anything that the tradition doesn't ground them in, they go far left. That's pretty sad. So yeah, there really does need to be a re-traditionalist revolution at the top level. Olga, Dr. Turley, what risk is seen in attempts to circumvent electoral college, the agreement among states to award presidential electoral votes to the nationwide popular vote winner? Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm really not sure what the logic is apart from the very real, the very legitimate belief that the Democrats were going to be permanent um, popular vote winners. So the dirty little secret was the Electoral College benefited red states. It did not benefit states that had L.A., San Francisco, had massive population centers like L.A., San Francisco, Chicago, right, Manhattan, Boston, and the like. Those states were inordinately pumping out popular vote margins, wins for the Democrat candidate, even though the Democrat candidate was losing the electoral vote. So, so I guess their notion was that if you could flip a couple of these red states to that are more purple, and to buy into tying their vote to their election to the popular vote winner, rather than the electoral vote. I just I just don't I don't see it. I don't understand it. I don't even know if it's legal, to be honest with you. I don't even know if it's constitutional, because it seems to me that whoever wins the state, it has to go to that person, and they could easily sue to have it go to that person. And how would that affect to even just campaigning in the state? It would lose all its power. So anyway. Back at 24 Hour, the Honorable Dr. Steve, do you believe the Supreme Court will rule in favor of Trump in birthright citizenship case? If they do rule in favor and end birthright citizenship, could Trump revoke previous awarded birthright citizenship, such as all the Chinese nationals that were born here and then went back to live and grow up in China? I don't know about the ex post facto question. I don't know if that's I don't know. That's a very, very good question. We'd have to find out. I don't know how to read it. I'm getting mixed messages. My namesake Jonathan Turley thinks they're going to uphold it, and that we just need a constitutional amendment that just settles it once and for all. But we're not going to get it, given how just how polarized we are politically right now. But yeah, it's insanely, stupidly, I just have a feeling they're going to uphold it. It's just the most outrageously insane. A 4-year-old could not have made up a dumber rule, a dumber law. I seriously, and to have actually some of the supposedly greatest legal minds in our country, say for the auto pen justice, to have them agree with the imaginary world of a 4-year-old, is just bizarre to me. So we'll have to see. William, Trump's kerfuffle with the Pope could be a preview of the Catholic Church Doge scandal that the government is revealing. Oh, your thoughts, please. I have to catch up on that Doge scandal. Catholic Church, again, is very liberal at the administrative level and at the NGO level. They are very, very liberal. And they side with leftist regimes all over the world. So if they've been getting money from taxpayers, you could be assured it's there to fund left-wing interests. But that's as much as I know of it at this point. But yes, I love seeing, as it were, leaders, kings arguing with the Pope. It's one of the, you have the legacy media, again, who just live in their own little echo chambers, in their own little bubbles, say, how dare the president actually take on the Pope? if you know a smidgen of world history over the last 1600 years, you will know that taking on the Pope is probably one of the most common geopolitical acts, particularly in Europe, anywhere in the world. But China has issues with the Pope. North Korea has issues with the Pope. I mean, it's just politics and the papacy have always clashed. There's no way around it. It's because ultimately the gospel is political. Declaring Jesus Christ as Lord is to say the state is not. It's to say that Kim Jong-un is not, so Caesar is not. Brenton, with Iran's military economic demise, is this creating a vacuum that will be filled with Turkey's caliphate ambitions? Yeah, very, very astute there, Ben. Yeah, Turkey is looking for their move. So the big clash in the region is between more or less three powers. It was Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. Saudi Arabia and Turkey could pile up quite a bit to push back against Iran. Then China came in and reached a deal, a rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia just a couple of years back. That's dead now, of course. But it showed that China was starting to exercise major power in the region. And Turkey don't want China in there doing that. So Erdogan is you could be assured he is going to be watching how the situation unfolds very closely, and he is going to position Turkey to have a stronger influence in the region, whether that's through Azerbaijan or what have you. But he's going to be positioning Turkey to have a much stronger influence in the region going forward. No question. What that looks like, we'll have yet to see. Again, the Azeris and the Turks are very close. They come. I forgot how they shift. One went Shiite, and the other one went Sunni, but they're both from the same ancestral tribe, as it were. And anyway, they'll be close in their alliances. And we'll have to see how that works out in the Abraham Accords theater. Necrophiliac. Iran is like a tiny Pomeranian dog. They don't recognize the other dog is 10 times more powerful than they are. These aren't exactly the descendants of Cyrus the Great. That's right. Yeah. Right. It would be much more the Persian. It would be Pahlavi. It would be more the descendant, as it were. Yeah. They're learning. They have to project power. They have to project psychological power, because the moment they lose that, it's over. They're going to collapse. Remember, the regime is built on three things. It's built on the theology of the messiahship, the God-given commission to destroy Israel and to basically humiliate the great Satan. So Iran sees itself as the center of the cosmos in that sense. The people don't believe in that anymore. The best surveys we have show that 80-90% of the people want the regime gone, and about 75% of mosques have closed. So just due to people just complete uninterest. So the people don't buy that anymore. Then you have the paid patronage system, where they basically buy loyalty. That's the IRGC, that's the Basij troops, and that's the proxies as well. Well, the money's dried up. They don't have any money anymore. And once the money's dried up, the loyalty dries up. So the last thing they have is this ability to project power. That's it, to intimidate, to kill, to execute. And that's where we come in. We have basically decimated their ability to project power. And the moment Iranian people fully see that, that's when you'll most likely see the uprising happen. When it'll happen, we'll have to see. We don't know. But a matter of if, I don't think it's there anymore. P. Favada, you stole my Friday Paper Tiger update with Malacca news, but love you anyway. No, That's right. Yeah, pure bro love, bro love. That's right. That's right. Phileo in the Greek, right? Like Philadelphia, brotherly love. Oh, thank you, Favada. But yes, Paper Tiger update is right. The Malacca news is huge. It exposes the China dilemma as it's no longer a theory or a concern; it is real. And with Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore all now coming under United States security architecture. I mean, that's and then with Australia and with Japan and Japan remilitarizing. Wow. I mean, that's incredible. And then of course it all connects in through the Quad with India. I mean, just unbelievable stuff. And then goes all the way to the Mediterranean via the I2U2 with India hooking up with Israel and the United Arab Emirates and the United States. Just unbelievable. There you go. P. Favada. Love it. Love you too, man. Unit Glue. Any update on Greenland? I was doing a little bit of reading on Greenland. Yeah, I mean, basically the United States through NATO, and there's not a lot that Denmark can do. And Denmark just suffered that humiliating defeat. What is her name? Mette Frederiksen, the prime minister, who held early elections because she thought she could capitalize on pushing back on Trump and the unpopularity that Trump had among the Danes. She thought she could capitalize on that. She ended up losing. She ended up losing in a humiliating landslide defeat. Because she, the Social Democrats had their own problems, but nevertheless, the basic deal gives the United States sort of like embassy sovereignty. So they don't have to own, we don't have to own Greenland, but NATO gives us the permission to use any part of Greenland we want. So Denmark can continue to send their welfare checks to the 50,000 people who live in who make up the nation of Greenland. They could still have their pampered welfare world. And then we just dig, baby, dig, and we just mine the place and build our missile silos and anti-aircraft missile technologies so as to take out Russia's hypersonic missiles that would be traveling in that area. And we'll be building up more of our ports so as to have to be part of this new strait that's opening up, trade route strait that's opening up as the earth warms up. The earth is warming. There is a global warming. What it has to do with, our industrialism's anyone's guess. Earth, we want the earth warm. Human populations always gather where it's warm. We're the first generation, the Greta generation, to want the earth cooler. Nobody wants that. So anyway, with that up in the north, we're going to have trade routes open up. We're going to have minerals, and we're going to have military. Money, minerals, and military. Franz, Dr. Steve is a fellow multipolarian. I guess I'm still looking to understand how reserve currency works in the multipolar dynamic. Well, I guess it depends how you define multipolarity. So for me, you could start at the military level. So in a multipolar world, by definition, nuclear powers are poles. They're pole power. If you're not a nuclear power, you're not a pole. I mean, just ask Iran. Just ask Venezuela. If you're not a nuclear power, you're not a pole. If you're a nuclear power, you are a major military power. Okay, so and there's multiple nations like that. Now, when it comes to economics, you can demonstrate polarity in number of ways. For example, 80% of the world has as their primary trade partner China. That's polarity. That's huge. China is the number one trade partner and the number one exporter for 80% of countries on this planet. That is gigantic. And that's, of course, all part of their BRI, their Belt and Road initiative. Russia is a major pole power with their energy and their ability to trade resource and commodity. So when it comes to things like trade, when it comes to things like commodity, you can be a major power, and you can have things that the rest of the world really needs, without which we all become very, very impoverished. That's a pull. But when you're getting into cash, when you're getting into currency, we dominate. There's no way we dominate cash and currency the way China dominates the export market. No other country comes close. The yuan does not come close because the yuan can't get converted. It doesn't matter if you're doing oil transactions in the yuan or any kind of trade transaction in the yuan. What are you going to do with the yuan? If China's paying you in yuan, what are you going to do with it? You're going to probably convert it into dollars. That's what you're probably going to do. So the dollar maintains total supremacy when it comes to cash, when it comes to the finance side of things. When it comes to fuel, when it comes to commodity, when it comes to exports, there are other major players on the field. Now, BRICS nations wanted to decouple themselves from the dollar completely, largely because of the way Biden weaponized the dollar. And they got very nervous with that. And a lot of countries got very nervous, as they should. I thought it was a big mistake to have done that. But nevertheless, what every multipolar theorist that I've read has, except some of the more really, really optimistic ones, every single one of them said decoupling from the dollar is really hard. The dollar just found its way into, because of its convertibility, it found its way into basically everything. And so to find another currency that would have that kind of convertibility, we just don't see it. We don't know that. Again, that's where they were getting into, well, what about Bitcoin? Because then if you're dealing with digital currency, well, now that can get converted, but in, Ethereum and Solana. And so now you've basically wrenched away from the old industrial order into the new noosphere, as we call it in our technopolar sense, the sphere of digitality and cyber civilization. So that's but in terms of just a hard currency, very difficult to replace the dollar. But that's not the only pull. That's all. That's what I would say. Again, and remember, multipolarity too is it is dynamic in terms of the seed of power, or the seat of power, I should probably say. It's dynamic. During the Biden years, America was clearly denigrating and dying on the world stage in terms of power. China, Russia, India, they were rising. Saudi Arabia, they were rising. The Emiratis, they were all rising powers. United States was dying. Japan was dying. Now it's flipped. Now the United States is rising. Japan is rising. Saudi Arabia continues to rise. India continues to rise. But now China and Russia are getting boxed out. So, and again, we can get, God forbid, Gavin Newsom coming in 2028, and it's going to flip. The dollar's going to start going down, and the basic power projection in the United States is going to start going down, and Russia and China are going to rise again. So it's very dynamic. It's very seesawy. But right now, you can't take on Trump right now. The astro-political, techno-political, theopolitical vision he has, and the civcosm, the civilization cosmocracy, can't be. We just have all the resources for it right now, whereas China and Russia are playing major catch-up. Sean Keeney, Dr. Steve, is Tucker Carlson becoming an apostate, shooting bullets at Christians, calling them Zionists and killers, while extending an olive branch to Muslims, claiming they love Jesus too, and you should not mock their faith? Oh, that's a good question. Is he becoming an apostate? I won't go there. I think some are. That's a very good question, Sean. Because again, it just doesn't seem to understand the world that's rising. Why is Iran suddenly the spokesperson and the symbol for Islam? When did that happen? They represent 15% of Islam. Shiaism is 15% of Islam. 85% of Islam is Sunni. So why not Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia certainly sees itself as the de facto leader of global Islam, being the home of Mecca and Medina. Why the Shiite theocracy? Why not the Sunni theocracy in Saudi Arabia? It doesn't make any sense, other than because Saudi Arabia is more or less teaming up with Israel now. They haven't joined the Abraham Accords, but they are very, very inclined to. I think that's part of Mohammed bin Salman was very excited when Trump announced when he was in Riyadh that they were recognizing the new government in Syria. Remember, Syria used to be with what is it, Abbas, and he was more pro-Iranian because Iran helped to keep him in power. And now with this new former ISIS officer, ISIS was a Sunni supremacist organization, or still is. Assad, sorry, I knew I had the name wrong in Syria, but so now that al-Assad is gone, now the Sunni alignment between Saudi Arabia and Syria is in full effect. And when Trump came in and said, we are going to officially recognize Syria with even an official visit to the Oval Office, that basically was the green light from Mohammed bin Salman to say, okay, we'll join the Abraham Accords. We'll be under this U.S. brokered security arrangement so that we can bring together Israeli muscle with Arab money, and we are going to economically thrive in this area. We are going to turn this desert into an oasis. This is so much more than turning Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East. That's a symbol of what Trump has envisioned and in fairness, Mohammed bin Salman as well, for the entire region. And the chief impediment to that was Iran. So I personally I have no problem people saying that Muslims honor Jesus, because they do. I have no problem with people saying Jesus is a major prophet in Islam, which he is, that Jesus is going to return again, which they do believe. I have no problem with that. But why on earth are you aligning those beliefs solely with a Shiite regime that chanted death to America, and not to Saudi Arabia, not to the UAE, not to Syria, not to Egypt, not to Turkey? Why? Why are you doing that? Not to Jordan. I mean, we could just keep going and going, right? And Bahrain and so forth. Why are you doing that? So that to me is the giveaway, that he's depicting a world that doesn't exist. The Shiites represent a small minority of global Islam that is radically hostile right now to the supermajority of Islamic nations, and all the GCC nations as well. I mean, it's very, very hostile to it. So why go with that? You can have Islam and you can have Israel. They're not at odds anymore right now, not under the Abraham Accords architecture. They're not at odds. That world doesn't exist. The theopolitics has changed, and I don't know why he's gone there. I don't. I have no inside information. Great question, Sean. Fred, crow is best served cold. Yeah, that's right. That certainly is. And there's a lot of crow being served today. That's right. Gaming glow lights. What happens if we lose the midterms? Aren't all these plans going to just evaporate with the Democrats just everything up? No, there's not much they can do. There really isn't. Again, the Republicans took the House in 2010, and Obama, and in 2014, Obama kept just doing what he did. We have control over pretty much everything. We have control. The Article 2 powers are pretty powerful, and there's not a lot that Congress can do. Again, they could try to cut off money, but the big beautiful bill has pretty much paid for everything up to 2029. So there's just not a lot they're going to do. Again, there's a lot of sound and fury, but baked into the cake of the BBB was the assumption we'll lose because lose the midterms, because every single party in power in the White House has lost seats in the midterms, an average of 30 plus seats. If for the exception of 3 times, 1934, 1998, and 2002. So if there were ever a time for an exception, I think it's this, with all the redistricting that's going on with the VRA decision that we're expecting. If there were ever a time for that exception to happen, and this is one. But again, even Reagan in '86, 60% approval rating, and he still lost seats. I mean, it's known as the refractory period or the pendulum swing. So they pretty much funded everything, and Trump can continue with EOs and just laugh at them. Mark, I saw on Newsmax that Delaware is losing $3 trillion in revenue to Texas. Have you heard anything about that? I didn't hear if it was $3 trillion. I know we've been losing a lot of companies. A lot of companies. That's our main revenue here, is corporate law. But ironically, Delaware is a net positive in terms of people moving in. It's one of the few blue states that are not losing population. And it's bottom line, I think it's because of our standards of living, cost of living. It's really cheap here. It's really inexpensive. There's no sales tax. It's a hub. It's right in between, Baltimore, Philly, or even you can go further, DC and New York. We're 2 hours from New York, hour and a half from DC. So but I do understand that we've lost a lot of money as a result of companies leaving because of some activist judges here who are blowing up the whole rationale for why people go incorporated in Delaware in the first place, because it's a very pro-business environment. Well, Saudi Arabia can always build a canal along with its pipeline that goes east and west. Well, Saudi Arabia can always build a canal along with its pipeline. Oh, yes, I guess so. Can they build a canal? I'm not sure. That'd be very, very interesting. Fred, where does NATO, Canada, Libs, and Dems go from here? Well, NATO, Canada, Libs, and Dems, where do they go from here? Good question. I mean, Mark Carney is, he's given some sense that, we need, what did he call those countries? What did he call them? Oh, there's a term for, did he call them like mid countries? I think they call them mid countries or something like that. Mid countries are like countries that just, they don't, middle country. Yeah. Middle nations or something. They don't have power like the great pole countries have, but they're also not like third world. They're just in the middle, and Canada would be one of them, Argentina, things like that. And he's basically arguing they need to band together and create a pole since they're stronger together. NATO, there's 3. I've done a video on this, and I'm trying to remember now. There's basically 3 options for NATO. There is, what do they call it? Like the ghost option or something like that. It's just a hollow shell. So NATO we keep NATO together. We still go to the Munich Security Council and stuff like that. But the United States, we become Spain. We just give it up 1% of our GDP. We just it just becomes a shell of what it once was, and it's there to kick into gear if a real threat ended up happening. And I think the second one was a coalition of the willing, where we throw it away, and we end up going into alliances with those who actually want to be in an alliance with us. Poland, right? Central Europe, Eastern Europe. And then there is a 2-tier option, whereas only countries that give 5% of their GDP will get Article 5 guarantees. Only countries that get will get Article 5 guarantees. So if you're not giving 5% like Spain, then if somebody invades you, so there's no Article 5 to protect you. It's just that simple. So. What's this thing happening? Oh, Adam, sorry. What's this thing happening in Virginia about the lieutenant governor? No idea. Let me see. What did I seem to have missed that. Virginia lieutenant governor. Mounting tension. Oh, is he the one who committed suicide? Former Dem rising star Fairfax kills wife. Virginia and the ex-lieutenant governor Justin. I don't know. I have no idea. I saw that. I didn't realize he was the ex-lieutenant governor. Yeah, I don't know. Miami Cuz, is New Jersey still trending red? It is, as I understand it, but it's just got a long way to go. There was a setback. There's a bit of a setback in the registrations because of Democrat primaries. And that's usually when, they'll go out and they'll be very aggressive with voter registration drives. But as I understand it, Jersey is still going red, but not as fast as people were thinking. So what was it? The idea was Pennsylvania is the new Ohio. So Ohio is the new Florida, and then Pennsylvania is the new Ohio, and then Jersey is the new Pennsylvania, and then Connecticut's the New Jersey, right? So, but it's going to take time. It's going to take some time. Even Pennsylvania had some setbacks a little bit, but it's still a net positive. P. Favada, London biggest loser in Europe, Spain second, and doubling down with China. Hope Besant cancels treasuries for cartels, money launderers who bypass sanctions, etc., and others. Take 3 to 5 trillion off the the bullshit or bullshit. Yes, I think London is a gigantic loser in this, no question. Lloyd's will not be able. I mean, I get it. Insurance companies are not going to be able to underwrite threats. Again, Iran didn't have to do anything per se. Yes, I know a couple of ships got whacked, but they don't have to do anything per se. They just have to make the threats. And then Keir Starmer, just being the loser that he is, we're finding out they don't. I mean, even Putin just gave him the middle finger with one of their Phantom tankers, and then a fighter ship to accompany it in the English Channel, and there was nothing Keir Starmer could do about it. We're finding Western nations as a whole in Europe are falling hard. They have a very large Islamic population, some as high as 10%. And it's going to take some time for them to get the backbone they need to reassert their civilization. We'll see how Reform Britain does, or Reform K, or Renew Britain, and we'll see how those parties do. They look like they're going to rock and roll, which would be great in the next parliamentary elections. But yeah, right now it's just really, and Spain. I mean, the Sanchez government is so pathetically liberal at this point. It's just not even like Trump is like, we're just going to pretend they don't even exist at this point. So, and then Bessent will definitely. Bessent is just such an awesome Treasury Secretary. You could be sure he won't disappoint. Robo Guy, what's the difference between Methodist, Baptists, Lutherans in regards to Protestant Christians? They come from different traditions. So Lutherans come from Martin Luther, and Lutherans more or less kept the Mass, the Catholic Mass, but changed the theology to a more reformed theology, very heavy, or at least the classical Lutherans, very heavy predestinarians, like the Calvinists. They actually had that in common. Luther was very hardcore predestination, election. So God decides who goes to heaven and who does not. So that's the predestinarian side. The Methodists come out of the Anglicans. That's John Wesley wing of the Anglicans, and that's the Church of England. They're not necessarily, there's not really a theology associated with the Anglican Church. Because it's really the English church when all is said and done. But Wesleyans are much more, as I understand, much more theologically defined. And their focus was on holiness, and they really focused on cultivating spiritual disciplines in believers. And then Baptists, I've read two different interpretations of the source of Baptists today. So you've got the Anabaptist tradition. That means to baptize again. And they believed in a church made up only of believers, and you're only a believer if you profess faith. So they rejected infant baptism, and then which was the classical practice of the church, certainly after the 3rd century. And they decided to focus on believers only baptisms, and kind of a separatist stance towards the state. So they tend to be very anarchistic-y. So it's modern day Amish. It's a kind of ironic phrase. Modern day Amish would be inheritors of the Anabaptist tradition. Within the Reformed tradition, so this could be more the Calvin and Geneva, kind of starting with Calvin and Geneva. I mean, interestingly, the Amish came out of Geneva as well, or Switzerland. But nevertheless, there was still a very strong commitment to the state. Remember, there was no separation of church and state in this time. So still a very strong commitment to the state, very strong commitment to confessional Christianity. But there was a wing that did believe you had to baptize only adults. And that's where our modern, like Southern Baptists more come from. They don't come so much from the Anabaptists. That's what I mean. I've read two different wings of this. They don't so much come from the Anabaptist tradition. The only thing they have in common with that tradition is adult or believer baptism. And it's because in the end, they believe that in a believers only church, not in a mixed church where there's believers and unbelievers and so on. So there you go. P. Favada, Anglicans are turning toward the Skittles rainbow. Yeah, they've been doing that for a while. Not the African ones, which is interesting, right? So the Rwandan Anglican Church, or the Ugandan Anglican Church, or even the Asian Anglican Church, they're going to be a lot more. They're going to be a lot more conservative. They're going to be a lot more traditionalist. But oh gosh, I mean, Canterbury, forget about it. I mean, I went to school. Well, I went to school at Durham University. I got my doctorate there. There are a lot of Anglican priests getting their masters or their doctorates there. I mean, I couldn't even imagine myself being under their bishopric or anything like that. They're just clownish. Lester Gordon, Dr. Steve, is there any update on Trump who's Trump is going to pick to replace Pam Bondi? I have not heard. What's her replacement? Who's the deputy? Why am I forgetting his name? Who replaced Pam Bondi? Todd Blanche. I have a feeling Blanche is going to keep it. I think Trump is very happy with Blanche right now. And even my namesake, Jonathan Turley said Blanche is pretty ruthless. So we'll see. But already we're starting to see a lot of corruption and indictments and so forth getting revealed. Miami Cuz is Jersey. We already got that, I think, right? Was that Miami Cuz? Yeah. We already got that one. William Livingston, the new pope is a globalist leftist. Yes, unfortunately, he is. He is very much so. Pope Leo is very clear. I mean, Trump, I don't know if you saw this. I did my video yesterday on this. Trump revealed he publicized some of his old tweets. Robert Prevost, when he became Leo the 14th, if I recall, they immediately deleted his Twitter account, his X account. Well, we can find it, obviously. The internet's forever. And he had a lot of derogatory, dismissive, critical tweets that were all very, very against Trump, against J.D. Vance, that were all very, very left-wing. And they were citing very hard left websites, unfortunately. So, yeah, he's a progressive realist. He believes liberalism won, and that the only way the Vatican can be intelligible in our age today is to be left-wing politically. It's absurd. It's nuts. He's the only one who believes that, along with the legacy media and the Democrats. But outside of that, no one else does. All you have to do is look at Patriarch Kirill of Russia, and you'll see where, or even these Anglican bishops in Africa, and you'll see where the world is right now. It is certainly not progressive. Ian, Dr. Steve, a great pleasure. I'm curious if the president's plan to start his own conglomerate of nations, wonderful plan, caused him to request the UN to move out of will cause him to use it. That's a very good question. I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, you're tracing out the logic fully. If the Board of Peace is really all about replacing the UN, which Trump has said publicly it is, if it's already about, creating the first major rapprochement between Israel and Lebanon in 30 years. I don't think they've met publicly since 91. So over 30 years. It could be a very, and he's still very upset at the Security Council allowing China and Russia to basically veto military action against Iran closing down Hormuz. The GCC countries, all united, went to the Security Council. I don't even know why they did this, but again, they've got one foot in the old world. They went to the UN Security Council to get a binding resolution justifying the use of force against Iran having closed the Strait of Hormuz. And they were shot down. They said, no, can't do it. Even though China was getting 40% of its oil through Hormuz, but it didn't, again, it didn't matter. It's all playing politics. But that'd be really cool to see them get rid of their New York building. What would that building turn into? That'd be really interesting. Sav, no, Cuba's next. It is. Trump has already said that. Cuba's next. It's all part of the plan of redesigning the world around networked multipolarity civilizational orders. Yep. Economy of self-reliance. If Trump pushes China and Russia too far, aren't we at risk of them using an EMP weapon to take us out? Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about the weaponry. We do have to be careful. We do have to be careful. I don't think Russia would have hit us in the way they felt we were encroaching on their civilizational sphere with Ukraine. They hit Ukraine. I don't know if China would hit us. They might hit Singapore, right? They might hit Malaysia, right? But they won't hit us. So no, that would the mutually assured destruction would be the response. So they wouldn't do it. Jacovellico, as a Latin American, Mr. Trump were not elected, many countries in this hemisphere would be trading in yuan, and Chinese would have been imposed as a second language. Can't wait to see him take out the narco governments next. Amen. Amen. Yeah, Latin America is just going through its own golden age right now, led by God's grace, by Nayib Bukele in El Salvador, and then followed up with Jair. I would say Jair Bolsonaro actually was first, but they did everything they can to get rid of him. Right, and then Nayib, he came in 2018. Nayib came in 2019, if I recall. And then Javier Milei most recently. And now just the dominoes are falling. And even it looks like Bolsonaro's son is going to win in Brazil later this year, if I recall. So, it's amazing what's happening in Latin America. And it's phenomenal. We got to see it happen with Mexico. I mean, Mexico with Scheinbaum is a real disappointment. But it'll happen. It'll be inevitable. If the dominoes are falling all the way through both Spanish, Portuguese speaking populations, it's going to inevitably go everywhere. So I'm with you. I'm very excited what's happening in South America. Very excited. I'll be in Brazil actually in June for a conference. Can't wait. Thank you, Dr. Steve, for being consistent. Oh, this is Beth for life. Thank you, Dr. Steve, for being consistent and true. I thank Jehovah in my remembrance of you. God bless you. Thank you so much, Beth, for life. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Adam, thoughts on the Dems trying to pass a bill against Nick Shirley? Absurd. Absurd. But again, it's their own version of third worldism. That the Western civilization is the true evil, and third world is rising up and not just rebelling, but actually pillaging Western civilization is a moral imperative. So that's why the open border was a moral imperative, so that the third world could come in and basically pillage us the way we pillage them. So that's it. It's just an extension of third worldism, as I see it. Nick's doing God's work, and he's getting under their skin, and I kind of like that. All right, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay in touch with this channel because, as you know, I'm your back porch professor on the weekend. So any breaking news, you're going to get my analysis from my back porch. Hopefully the weather will be nice. Also, if you're in the Ephrata area, if you check, I don't know, Josh, if we got some information where I'm speaking in Ephrata. I forget where, in Pennsylvania. But just go to our website and you'll see some information there on that as well. Love you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. God bless.